Today was a bad day for the Fox propaganda network as they were forced to report on positive economic news under President Biden, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video, and we're going to begin with the fun stuff. It's a recurring tradition on this channel that at the beginning of every month, there is a jobs report issued by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor about the jobs created in the U.S. economy the previous month. And as time of recording is July 5th, so we finally got June 2024's jobs reports in, and it's really good. And as a matter of fact, I will let the Fox Propaganda Network take it away, reporting on this with a couple of clips.
Is back with a Fox Business alert. The June jobs report just released shows the U.S. added 206,000 jobs last month. That's more than economists expected.
The other big story of the day, of course, the jobs report, 206,000 jobs added in June.
And there you have it. Now, I'm looking forward to Fox pouring over these numbers even more in the next few days. Usually, Maria Bartiromo is the funnest to watch, right? Because she's the one struggling the most with COPE. She usually impanels a bunch of conservatives and they pour over the data trying to find something negative. And of course, they do everything in their power to avoid mentioning President Biden's name, because the last thing what they want to do is a report on positive economic news and somehow have their viewers associated with President Biden and the Biden administration. But as Ben Shapiro would say, facts don't care about your feelings. And so as Cap Action reported, here's some good news for your holiday weekend. The economy added more than 200,000 jobs in June, 206,000 jobs added in June, 15.7 million created since President Biden took office. And they have this adorable little chart here, which is really fun. A smiling Biden presiding over this blue positivity here, these blue majestic pillars looking down on a really disappointed Donald Trump. As you see here, 2020, of course, that was the year of COVID and Trump's mismanagement of the pandemic. And the average monthly job creation or loss in this case in 2020, for 2020 was 761,000 jobs lost. And that's why Trump has the worst record on respect to jobs or with respect to jobs since President Hoover. An ignominious fact, to be sure. Now, of course, a lot of people, as we talked in previous videos, they say, wait, Josiah, wait a minute. You can't give President Biden credit for jobs that came back or were rather recreated under the COVID recovery. You can't blame Trump for jobs lost because of COVID. Couple of things, and I love pointing this out. I can do that. I can do that for a few reasons. Number one, if the shoe were on the other foot, if it had been a Democratic president in charge of managing a pandemic, no matter how extraordinary, they would not be graded on a curve. Certainly not by right-wing media, certainly not by Republicans, and not even by the mainstream media. The presumption would be, listen, it doesn't matter. The job is tough. You are the president. You have an obligation to do your best. And if something bad happens, well, it's your fault, damn it. But Republicans and right-wing media don't want you to hold them to that same standard when they happen to be present at the time of these sort of catastrophes. And I say no. I say pick a standard and we're going to stick to it. We're going to apply the same standard to everybody. So if presidents are responsible for the things that happen on their watch, then that has to be the case, good and bad, for Democrats and Republicans. The other thing is, as we've talked about, Trump did mismanage COVID. I don't blame him for the virus, but I do blame him for not doing his best to manage the pandemic which ensued. He was chief executive. He failed to adhere to the wisdom of his medical advisors. He didn't trumpet them. He didn't have their backs unfailingly. He constantly railroaded and undermined them. He talked about injecting bleach, tanning the virus out of you, hydroxychloroquine, all these things. He retweeted, firing Fauci, even though Fauci worked for him and was a career civil servant who worked for Democratic and Republican administrations. He didn't use Trump, the bully pulpit of the presidency, to corral Republican voters and citizens and politicians, governors of other states, to take the virus seriously. Imagine if Trump had said, listen, America, this is a time of crisis and we need to come together. Democrats, Republicans, independents, men, women, non-binary, religious, non-religious, we all as a society need to come together and manage this pandemic so people's lives are not lost. And he didn't do that. So yes, I blame him in large part for the fallout of COVID and the economic fallout of COVID as well. And if he tried his best and things still, occurred under his watch, then I'd be less inclined to blame him, because then I could say he did everything in his power to manage the crisis responsibly, and he didn't. When President Biden took over, of course, he did manage the pandemic responsibly. He radically increased vaccinations. He coordinated at the federal level. He effectively doubled the rate of vaccinations than was the case under Trump. He partnered with Lyft and Uber and celebrities. There were lotteries. He effectively tried to bribe Americans to go get the vaccine because he wanted them to be safe. He put a vaccination and testing site within 5 miles of 95% of the public. Folks, the list goes on and on and on. That was on Biden. Biden did that. And so Biden gets the credit for the economy to open back up and jobs coming back or being created. And as a matter of fact, it's not like all these jobs were put on pause. There were jobs and businesses lost during the pandemic, which never came back. So it's not simply a matter of, well, they were always going to come back after the pandemic. Maybe, maybe not, and certainly not necessarily to the highest rate possible. But you know what? Even if I generously grant Republicans their wish, and I don't count COVID, which again, I'm not obligated to do, and neither are you, but we still win the argument. Even if you control for COVID losses under Trump, COVID recovery under President Biden, Biden's average monthly job numbers are better than Trump's. 182 under Trump, 182,000 to 276,000 under President Biden. There's no getting around it, folks. Biden just objectively has a better record. As Steve Ratner, again, the economist points out, or the economic analyst, Trump's claims that Biden only added bounce back jobs is simply not true. 6.2 million more Americans are employed relative to pre-pandemic levels. Great news for Biden. And of course, people say, well, these jobs report is because of government jobs. And actually, they're not. Government accounted for 11% of job gains in May and 0% of job gains in April, just misleading people for the post. 90% of total job gains under President Biden have come from the private sector. So that's another false claim debunked. Last thing I want to do is play this clip from Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of California, one of the best rhetoricians and debaters in the Democratic stable. And he is attempting to make the case for President Biden because, as we discussed, whether we like it or not, yes, the facts are on Biden's side. The macroeconomic measures and all these things, they are objectively good under Biden. They're better than any other nation on earth. They're so good that Trump is always trying to take credit for it. The jobs are because of me. Record-breaking stock market is because of me. It's because they're predicting I'm coming back. That's how good it is. It's a tacit concession of Trump, of all people, that the economy is good. But we have to connect the dots for the American people, and we've really struggled to do that. There is a reluctance on the part of the American electorate to associate Biden with Biden's actual economy. And it's very frustrating. And it's not enough to simply, again, have the facts on our side. We have to persuasively convey the facts to others. And so this is how Governor Gavin Newsom puts it.
Because I believe in this man. I believe in his character. I believe that he has been one of the most transformative presidents in our collective lifetime. I really believe it. There's a decency with Joe Biden. And I'm old-fashioned. Character matters, but I'm also old-fashioned in this respect. Results matter. Politics is not just performative, not just entertainment. It's about getting things done. And it's been a remarkable 3.5 years from my perspective. It's been, dare I say, a masterclass, because I believe in this man.
A masterclass. And I agree with him. Listen, again, at the end of the day, there's this idea, I think, among Democrats that as long as the facts are on our side, it's enough to win the day. It's not. Elections are based, I think, infinitely more on feelings. And facts should enable you to tell a better story, right? It should be easier to tell a story, to convey a political narrative when you have the facts on your side, right? Because you don't have to make anything up and they can withstand scrutiny. But I really do believe along the way, we've just convinced ourselves that the facts can speak for themselves and we have to go talk about something else. I disagree. I think that so much of the current sentiment about the economy, I genuinely believe this has a lot to do with propaganda. I think it has a lot to do with effective Republican messaging. And we have to step up. And so, again, I love the fact that the Fox Propaganda Network is, every month, almost without fail, at the beginning of every month, they have to report positive economic news. They do everything in their power to not associate it with Biden. And that's our jobs. We have to, make the case that actually this economy is in large part because of Democratic leadership. And if you, for whatever reason, reward Republicans with, a trifecta, if you reward them with the White House, if you let them keep the House, if you give them back the Senate, there's no reason to believe that this great economy will continue because historically speaking, Republican leadership has led to recession and Democrats have to get us out of recession. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments.